All right, it's 2 o'clock on my watch, and would like to welcome you to our 14th confab for the state-approved museum and curatorial repositories program. This confab platform started during the COVID pandemic as a way for us to kind of do some outreach and communication and training and presentations to all of our confab repositories. And we typically will record this and post it on YouTube, so there'll be a video archive as well. And I want to again thank everyone for participating today, particularly my colleagues and friends who've agreed to participate. And we actually have a really great set of folks who willingly who I've asked to say some things about collections research. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into that. So like we always have done, and I think most appropriately, we were going to start with a land acknowledgement. And we acknowledge that the land currently known as Colorado has been the traditional homelands of indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We are grateful to the work in partnership with the 48 sovereign nations who continue to call this land home. Together we plan exhibits, collect, preserve, and interpret artifacts, do archaeological work, and create educational programs to share the history of Colorado. And a little bit of housekeeping. Our next confab, we're going to be trying to talk a little bit more in depth about Native American collaborations with collections and exhibits and maybe even museum programming, that sort of thing. We've kind of touched upon that in an earlier confab where we talked about diversity programs, but we're going to really focus in on Native American collaboration. How is that done? What's the proper way to do it? We're getting a lot of questions about that, so I think it would be most appropriate to do so. That'll be the next confab. It'll be the very last confab for 2022. So be sure, if you're not a subscriber to our Curation Notes newsletter, to go ahead and subscribe. You'll get the time and the date when that will occur, as well as hopefully some other information that you'll find useful. So thanks. And you can see the link is there on the screen, but you can also probably look through our History Colorado webpage, look under the State Approved Museum Program, and look under resources, our resource library area. So just a little bit of background. We have some new folks that are joining us today. The State Approved Museum Program is one that we kind of had in an informal state prior to 2017, and in 2017 we solidified some of our procedures through our Rules and Procedures program, and we now have currently 37 accepting state-approved repositories that have proven their reputableness to collect state archaeological and paleontological collections found on any non-federal public lands. And so we're really thankful for all of those folks who are in those institutions and organizations that are willing to collect all the artifacts taken and usually are done by our permitting process. So, and as part of the program, all approved museums and repositories are encouraged to enhance their collections management care and to facilitate space requirements to achieve or maintain or exceed their reputable status. So we try to emphasize that. And we also encourage, if there is a need for these collections, to have them rehoused or rehabilitated, and also maybe exhibited or enhanced in any way, to seek grant funding either through the State Historical Fund or through other funding sources to help be trustees for the state of Colorado and their collections from their particular area. And it's really also important to emphasize that the National Historic Preservation Act defines curation as part of historic preservation. So I think a lot of people forget the curation part of it, but it is indeed enacted in federal law. Also, historic property and historic resources that are on the National Register include the artifacts and records that are associated with each property. So just to continue to remember that. So I want to talk a little bit more about the game plan. So what is the game plan for Colorado and our repository network? Well, it includes a number of different things, just like any kind of game plan that you might be trying to execute to make a program work. Obviously, we look at the reputable status, and we try to encourage reputable status for all our repositories. We offer training and educational opportunities. These confabs and our summits that we've done in the past are part of that, as well as like the newsletters and things of that nature, all of our website resources as well. We try to encourage partnerships and emergency connections in case of a disaster. That's also a big part of the game plan. We also offer opportunities for our grant assistance and the tools in which you can apply and the repositories can apply. We also offer internships here within our program here, but we also have volunteers. Often they're students or folks from avocational groups like the Colorado Archaeological Society and others that we'd like to even expand further. That also can be of assistance to these repositories. And then we like to encourage collections reanalysis, which is the topic of today's discussion. Most of that is done by students, but professionals I think are also welcome and encouraged to do reanalysis. It's part of the reason why we collect things, obviously. We collect things not just to store them onto a shelf or space, but they're hopefully of value to future researchers. And so how do we encourage students and researchers to do reanalysis of these collections that are on many shelves in all of our different museums and repositories? And then also a part of that too is how does the public benefit from that? So what's the public benefit aspects of that? And sometimes that's not always clear, but can we have students do presentations in local communities, maybe small traveling exhibits, maybe some lectures, pamphlets, that kind of thing? That would all very much help and probably be very appreciated in these smaller communities to understand their own histories and the important archaeological and historic sites that are in their area. So that's part of the game plan. We'll be talking mostly about collections and the public lecture aspects of it today. So thank you all for participating. So today, hopefully I'm going to advance here. Not sure where I'm going. Here we go. I also wanted to tell you that we also have a couple other resources on our program website. One of which is a list of potential thesis, dissertation, capstone listings. I'm not going to put that also here in the links here in the chat, so you can see that. Hold on a second, if I can do this. So you can check that out. We also have a list of sites with repository names that also hopefully students and researchers can also access as well. So hopefully you can also check that out. And I'm going to put that link here as well. So those are some things that we have, and today we're going to be talking more particularly about some other key aspects and ask you if you have any suggestions to enhance this program. I have in fact created a little note catcher for you to, if you have or would like to share some ideas, you can go ahead and drop your ideas in this link here too. So to begin with, I've asked Dr. Tammy Stone, who's with the University of Colorado at Denver, to give us a little bit of background. She wrote a very excellent guide to the use of museum collections for archaeological research back a few years ago, but I think it's still very valuable. It was published in the Advances for Archaeological Research by the Society for American Archaeology. I'll put a link where you can get that as well here. Let's see here, because I put that on a shared drive, so you all have access to that as well. Let's see here. And if Tammy, if you'd like to go ahead and start, I'm going to make you a co-host, and we'll go from there. How about that?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. As Todd says, I did write that article because, in credit of the fact that I was sitting in an SAA symposium where everybody was talking about how it was impossible to use museum collections to do research, which is not true. I'm a museum archaeologist. The last 20 years, every publication I've had is off museum collections and archives. And that's multiple books and articles, so it's definitely not true. So my goal was to let people particularly people who are new to the field, know that there is a way to go about it, and here's how you reach out to contact people and the kinds of things you should think about. I encourage all of my graduate students to think about it, although I'm counting down to retirement, so the number of those is decreasing. But in fact, one of my graduate students is working at History Colorado right now, Elin White, who I think is actually on this call. And so I always encourage students to work with the collections. I was glad to see that link. Thank you, Todd, for possible topics, because that's usually the biggest hindrance, is they just don't know what's available. And I'd like to reach out to anybody who does have collections that you think would make a good student project. And I'm always happy to share those with the students and encourage them to work on them, because they're always looking for thesis research, honors thesis research, and even class projects. And quite frankly, I'm looking for projects too all the time. I'm not sure what else you wanted me to say, Todd.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Tammy. Really appreciate it. And yeah, that's a good starting point for a lot of our researchers. And just knowing how to talk to museums, where to go, and how where to find the resources. So that guide is very valuable. Next, I'd like to talk to my colleague Jeannie Perdzun-Guzman from Colorado State University. She's going to talk to us about the CSU's practicum and internship program. If you could go ahead, Jeannie.
Hey, let's see if I can share my screen.
Yes, let me make sure you can do that. There you go. Should be co-host. You should be able to do that now.
Okay. Well, first I'll say hello. My name is Janine Peterson-Guzman. I am the Archaeological Collections Coordinator for the Department of Anthropology and Geography at CSU in Fort Collins. And I also teach classes in museum studies, and we have a certificate program now for undergraduates that are interested in museum and cultural heritage studies as a career. But I will share this now. Share. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, okay. Okay, so that's us. Just a brief history of the repository and our collections. The department started collecting material in the early to mid 1970s. And we had a few professors that had established like a small CRM firm and did extensive work for the Forest Service, BLM, and the Bureau of Reclamation. And over 30 plus years, the collection grew to include, we know of over 1,200 archaeological sites in the collection, over 800 isolated finds. And prior to me coming to the university. I've been here almost 5 years. There wasn't really anyone responsible for the care of the collection. We do have Dr. Jason LaBelle, who cared very much about the collection and did what he could. But it is now my job to organize and take care and provide access to the collection. Going forward, the collection was built basically on which contracts the CRM firm was working on. But as we move forward, we've set a scope for the region in northern Colorado that going forward, we will only collect and accept collections from this region. That just kind of keeps it, a little more succinct than letting pretty much anything come in. And like I mentioned, we have Dr. LaBelle. He's been with the department for, I think, 15 years, and he actually went to CSU for his undergrad. So he worked with some of the professors that collected this material and knows the collection very well. So he's really our driving force as far as engaging students in research. He's teaching class at the moment, so he couldn't join us, but it's my job to kind of facilitate all of that access to the collection. So we have a couple of different avenues for students to work in the repository. We have a practicum, which is, it's about 90 hours of work throughout the semester. It comes up to be about 6 hours a week, where the students get 3 credits, and then they get hands-on experience working with the artifacts. Primarily to this point, we've been doing a lot of inventory and rehousing. But the nice thing is that it exposes the students to the repository, and then lots of times they'll pick up a research project or capstone project or things like that from just being exposed to the repository. And other things that we do, it's not just, hands-on with the collection. We try to give the students a variety of experience. Natalie Freeman, she was one of my students that she's really talented with scientific illustration. So she took one of our bison kill sites and did some scientific illustration and developed some outreach and education for our website. And then in the other picture, I have 2 students that did some extensive research on a collection that was donated to the repository, and then did small exhibits. So there's a variety of different type of work that the students can do through the practicum. Another thing we offer are internships. We have these at the undergraduate or graduate level. But one thing I wanted to mention was that we've had really a lot of success working with the BLM and the Bureau of Reclamation. Since we hold some of their collections, they can't necessarily give us, write us a check, but they can buy us supplies to rehouse the collection, and then they can pay students and interns through this National Council for Preservation Education. So I think just recently we had 2 students do over 600 hours of work, and they were paid by the BLM. And then in the past, I've had up to 5 students and recent graduates do over 700 hours on Bureau of Reclamation collections. So it's a great way to get the students in and get the work done that needs to be done. And Dr. LaBelle works with all of his students to conduct research on the collection. And we have a variety of ways that this can be done, either through doctoral theses, graduate theses, which Kim Bilo will speak to you next about her work. But we also have as capstone program, all of the seniors at, before they graduate have to do a research project. And it just is a great opportunity for them to do research and then present it. And then a lot of that work for our archaeology students comes from collections in the repository. And another thing that I do is I teach a class on museum exhibitions, and this is a recent class that just created an exhibit all from the collections in our repository. So they picked a site and did all the research, and so I think there's just a good variety of different types of things that students could do at your facilities. My suggestions would be to, I know most of you are all over the state, so to partner with a local university, community college, or even a high school. Usually the anthropology department or history department, find the internship coordinators. I'm actually the internship coordinator for our department, and I work a lot with our students to place them in internships all over the state, or whatever their interests are. Also anthropology clubs, and then the career centers. And like I mentioned, like if you do have federal or state collections, to start a conversation about how they might be able to support an intern or help you, purchase archival materials that then you can use to work on your collection, or encourage students to come in and do research. I think that's it.
Thank you, Janine. That was perfect. And yes, CSU has done a fantastic job with giving, I think, the students really prepared and understanding where the collections all are, and accessing them and encouraging them to do those kinds of research. So thank you very much, Janine, for that presentation. And so I think it's really great and important that we hear from some students about this as well. So we actually do have a CSU student, grad student, who has been working with collections, and she's going to share with us her research and her experience. So please welcome Kim Biela. Is that right? How you pronounce her last name?
Biela, yes.
Biela, okay. And let me go ahead and make you a little co-host here too. So let's make sure I find you here. There you are. Okay, Kim. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Let's see if I can share my screen. Okay, can everyone see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was going to say I'll take that as a yes.
We see your notes too.
Oh, interesting. There we go. Do you see the normal screen now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. My name is Kimberly Biela. I'm a master's student at Colorado State University, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my research conducting analysis on ceramics from Rio Blanco County, Colorado. So I graduated from the University of Maine in 2020, and I knew right away that I wanted to pursue a career in archaeology. So I came to CSU that same year to start my master's, and my advisor, Dr. Jason LaBelle, was highly influential when it came to me choosing my thesis project. He really encouraged that I conduct a collections-based thesis, because there's just so many collections from different sites sitting in repositories that are waiting to be studied. And after all, it's very important to know what we already have in our repositories before we open the ground again. So eventually I was able to narrow down my thesis project, creating a comprehensive analysis of Indigenous ceramics from Rio Blanco County, Colorado. And since I started here, I also had the wonderful opportunity working in our own CSU repository Just as Janine just presented on, I've been re-inventorying and rehousing all of our other collections from Rio Blanco as well. So ceramic analysis in archaeology is a broad technique that can determine cultural affiliation, chronology, and even trade networks across well-known regions. And so my research goals for my thesis are to create a synthesis of all known data on Indigenous ceramics collected over the past about 80 years via survey and excavation in Rio Blanco County. I then want to examine the distribution of ceramics across the landscape to look for spatial patterns between the Fremont and later groups who occupied this region, and examine the differences between semi-sedentary farmer versus mobile forager manifestations of pottery in this region. So this is my study area. There's about 157 ceramic sites that have been identified in Rio Blanco County. And this map that I have here represents about 135 of these sites that I received for my original inquiry with the OAHP database. My list has recently grown, and I'm still in the process of obtaining site coordinates for the new ceramic sites that I've identified during my museum visits. To date, I've analyzed 1,796 sherds from repositories across the state and beyond. But this count is even still growing, with a couple ceramics left at CSU for me to look at. This is a list of all the museums and institutions that I've reached out to for my project. And while I've received responses from all these institutions, only 6, which I've highlighted in blue, have relevant collections for my project. So you might be wondering, what am I doing at these institutions when I visit? Ceramic types and production technology can be determined through temper, wall thickness, and surface treatment of the ceramic pieces. So when I visit, I'm looking at their Rio Blanco ceramics and I'm taking measurements, including exterior and interior Munsell color, sherd thickness, length, and mass. And I'm also identifying the temper using a hand lens. I'm also examining interior and exterior surface treatments, such as any sort of decoration that might be on these ceramics, as well as slips and burnishing. And then I photograph the unique sherds that I come across. So to me, unique means the sherds that do have decoration on them, such as the impressed body sherds in the top left and bottom center, the corrugated pot in the top center, or the more rare painted sherds seen in the top center. I also always photograph rim sherds and other unusual pieces, such as the handle in the top right and the effigy piece in the bottom left. I've also photographed some very rare applique pieces in the bottom right, but of course there's more variation in Rio Blanco County than just these that I've shown here. There are some challenges that I've encountered, and while I'm not going to tie any of these challenges to specific institutions, they primarily involve repository inventories. So this includes issues with the actual item location at a facility, maybe not being where they say that it is, inventory discrepancies or vagueness in the quantity of items held in an institution, and issues with inventory digitization, whether that be other inaccuracies or things just generally not being digitized for the ease of research inquiries. These challenges I've seen are kind of an inherent part of any repository. It's simply the nature of this type of work where collections may have changed hands so many times over the years, and so many records were made before computers were around. And in visiting all these museums that I have for my project, I see that it can be difficult and overwhelming and costly to catch up with these types of things. And in the same vein, I see part of the value of conducting collections research is being a helping hand to museums while also collecting data. I've had institutions waive their research fee for me to come in and help them locate their ceramics from Rio Blanco County and share my data with them for their own digital databases. So while these challenges exist, I think those of us looking to conduct collections research are in a unique position to also be a part of the solution. And despite those challenges, the value of studying these museum collections is immeasurable, in my opinion. Through this museum study, we're going to comprehensively know what ceramics from Rio Blanco County look like, as well as where these ceramics are both on the landscape and in our repositories. Additionally, this work is growing our current knowledge of ceramics in Rio Blanco County. As I've mentioned, my list of ceramic yielding sites has grown since my original inquiry to OAHP. And finally, this research is laying the foundation for future research of ceramics in this region, including a more in-depth analysis of temper, compositional analysis, residue analysis, and more. So yeah, thank you all for listening. And if anyone's interested in hearing more about my thesis, I'm going to be presenting some preliminary results next month at the CAS conference.
Thank you very much, Kim. I really appreciate it very much. Thanks for sharing your research and some of the challenges and opportunities that you've pointed out. I think that's incredibly valuable to consider. So thank you again, Kimberly. I'd like to hear more about your research, so I'm looking forward to hearing further what your research results are.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Great. We've not to be outdone with University of Colorado Denver and CSU. There are of course other great institutions out there that are encouraging their students to do research, and over the years we've had really good relationships with Metropolitan State University, but we also have some new faculty there as well. So like to say hello, Dr. Jade Louise, who is the new professor at Metropolitan State University. And if you'd like to just sort of say a few words about yourself, your background, and maybe some of your goals or aspirations you'd like to see for your students, perhaps working with collections. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to learn more about a lot of the opportunities for accessing collections here in Colorado. So I, as was mentioned, I'm a new hire here at Metropolitan State University. I originally was in Massachusetts, where I actually got a collections-based PhD at Boston University on the archaeology of sex work, using a site that I was able to identify through looking at the artifacts and looking at the documentary evidence. It's the only known brothel that's been excavated so far in the city of Boston. And so I'm very, very excited about collections-based research. And then in addition to that, I also spent the last 5 years in the museum industry in curation and collections management. And I could see all of the potential for research projects in museums I was working in Plymouth, Massachusetts, one of which, by reassessing the collection, which we had a number of master's students working on a collection to get it fully inventoried and digitized, they ended up determining that that there was evidence for indigenous occupation at the site where the museum is located, about 5,000 years earlier than had been previously believed, which of course lined up with the oral history of the local Wampanoag community. So there's all sorts of different potentials in the collections world, and I'm really hoping to bring that to the students. So currently I'm teaching an introduction to cultural anthropology, but also an online museum studies course where we're getting into the meat of how to work with collections in the museum industry. And then this semester's course is entirely online, but next semester it will be entirely in person. And I'm looking forward to bringing students into collections, having them interact with them, and use them to also construct exhibitions for the university at large, to share out with people coming to the university the sorts of collections that MSU Denver has. And then another thing I also wanted to add is that everyone here is very Colorado-based, I know, but I'm a member of the Society for Historical Archaeology, and I'm a part of the collections committee. And they recently had a big push to do an inventory of repositories across the country that have historical archaeological collections. And it was, a little bit of a push and pull to try and get responses, but I'm happy to drop in the chat the link on Society for Historical Archaeology's website survey for anybody who's interested there as well. But yeah, so essentially my goals are I really want to encourage students to work with collections and kind of use a little bit of my background and experience, but also make connections with all of you in the broader kind of Colorado area to encourage students to work across repositories, across universities, across disciplines.
Well, thank you, Jade. That's fantastic. We're glad to have you here in Colorado, and we hope that we can encourage and be of assistance to all your goals and aspirations for your students. And we're hopefully a partner with you. The Society for Historical Archaeology's listing has been promoted a few times here, and we do encourage everyone to go ahead and try to add their repositories to that and their collections. It is a great effort that Society for Historical Archaeology has been trying to put together, so I do encourage you to check out that link. We do have another student hopefully here as well, Ray Wiggins. So we have a student organization at Metro called Alpaca, which is an acronym for all the different subdisciplines of anthropology at Metro, which is a really cool acronym, and it also is a great student organization. And so I wanted to make sure that this is a kind of, these confabs can also kind of be a forum to talk about, what's the experiences of students and what needs or resources could we provide so that collections research can take place, and what could we do. So maybe Ray, if you'd like to jump on and unmute and introduce yourself and let us know what your thoughts are, and maybe there's other students that are also very interested in collections research.
Yeah, thank you so much, Todd. I appreciate it. As you mentioned, Alpaca is a student-led organization. It strives to introduce students to all subfields of anthropology through regular meetings and activities. It's the goal of Alpaca to provide students with the opportunity to meet and hear from professionals who work in their field of anthropology, and also meet with other students with similar interests. We do a lot of outreach. Currently, our big goal is to get our members out into the community with like behind the scenes tours of how you're actually managing your collections. I recently reached out to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and we're arranging to be able to go out and see what they're working on in their anthropology sections. But we really need the other professionals to be able to kind of be able to network with, so that we can get more students interested. So they like the classes, but the classes are nice, but they don't give us hands-on experience. At MSU, we do have a very nice archaeology lab that has a lot of collections in it. For example, right now I'm currently working on helping curate the zoological collection that we have from Cass. So there's ways to volunteer and kind of get into it and get involved. But we do need more resources and access to those resources in order to get out into our community. But I guess that's the biggest thing, is we just need more contacts to be able to do it. A lot of our members were able to work on this summer the Sisters of Laredo exhumation and reinterment project, which was really nice to be able to have that hands-on experience. So
Thank you, Ray. That's great. And I think it was really good, your suggestion about having like behind the scenes tours or open houses with our repositories and museums. As you said, sometimes it's you read it in the book or you just have maybe a list of ideas, but really to go out and actually see the museum or the repository and see the collections maybe that are behind the scenes. That would be fantastic if that could be accomplished by our repository partners. So great suggestion on that for sure, and really appreciate you speaking today and letting us know some ideas that you at your institution and your students, your fellow colleague students may be needing. So thank you very much for joining in on this discussion. I'd like to also now kind of talk about, what other resources are available for students and researchers. And we have a couple of great scholarship programs. One that is done or provided by the Colorado Archaeological Society. It's called the Alice Hamilton Scholarship for archaeological collection. Well, could be any kind of research, obviously, related to archaeology in Colorado. And I think they've actually done some things outside of Colorado as long as there were students who were from Colorado. But the other program that is available for funding for research is the Colorado Council of Professional Archaeologists Award Weekly Scholarship, which has a long list of past recipients who I was talking to one of the members of the committee that runs that, and there is a long list of people who have done really collections-based research related to Award Weekly. So this is a great opportunity, these two different scholarships for students. So I've asked someone from CAS to speak, but they weren't able to join. But I do have Mike Medcalf from the Colorado Council of Professional Archaeologists, who is on the committee. And Mike, great to see you. And if you could just let us know a little bit more about the Award Weekly Scholarship Program and what students maybe can use it for. Thanks.
Okay. Well, the program has been going on for almost as long as CCPA has been in existence. And over a period of years, we've built up a pretty substantial fund out of which we reward. I believe we're up to $1,000 now on the amount that a student can request as a reward. And we're in a position where we can do 2 or 3 of those scholarships each year. And in order to kind of look at what CCPA has done as far as supporting collections research, per se, it's part of our philosophy that to support students in that sort of research, because the money goes a long ways when it's applied to collections as opposed to other kinds of work. And when we were preparing for this, Adrienne Anderson went back a little bit in her memory and more so online, just looking at what we were awarded, since 2020, which is all we can access in the online without digging into archives. And we've done more than 8 scholarships that's in some form or another, depending on how you define collections, have been awarded for collections research. And she looked at the kinds of categories of, she thinks that, and we agree that how do you define collections research, whether we're supporting it or not. If you're just doing a count, it kind of depends on what you call those. But first of all, catalog collections from formal museums probably is the majority of what we've awarded for. But we've awarded for people going to well-documented amateur collections and trying to bring those into the fold of published knowledge, as well as more informal collections that might have been gathering dust under somebody's desk at the university, or in other cases, bringing people that weren't involved with the field work in on the analysis of collections that were retrieved during either grant supported or contract supported research. So we're always looking for and willing to support students that are doing collections-based research. And I think personally, and I think the whole committee agrees, it's increasingly important, and we'd encourage professors that are advising and grad students that are searching for thesis topics that yes, we're here and we are eager to award those to to supplement their research. We don't restrict kinds of things we'll fund are time to, or not time, but travel costs to go to museums, specialized analysis of collections that might have been retrieved, radiocarbon dating, thermoluminescence, things like that, as well as occasionally a student needing to hire some sort of an outside analysis like obsidian hydration or radiocarbon dates. So, we definitely are here for that sort of thing. I saw Becca ask a question in the chat. Using data to make educational curriculum. I can't remember if we've supported that as a scholarship, but we certainly would consider it.
You did, because you gave it to me.
I thought so. I think that might have been before my time on the committee, but maybe not. Anyway, that's really about all I've got to say about it.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for all of that. That's very helpful, and for professors out there, certainly if you can encourage your students to utilize the CCPA Ward Weekly and the Alice Hamilton Scholarship opportunities tied to any of their research, please do so. There's clearly a lot of resources, I think, that maybe some students may not even know that there are available, such as those scholarships. There's also some opportunities if some student was really took an initiative and really did some real work at it, probably could partner with some other groups, maybe to look at some preservation grants that also could associate with collections research. So maybe doing some rehousing while also doing some research. I think there's a lot of opportunities in that realm that really hasn't been exploited too much. But there are other grant type funding sources available. Certainly the State Historical Fund is also a possibility. Maybe some of their micro grants could also help and enhance a research project using collections, maybe in a small type of traveling exhibit or something like that. There are also certified local government grants, which we've talked about in previous confabs as well. And Becca, thank you very much. There's a nice link to some scholarships and opportunities from the Colorado Council of Professional Archaeologists, and the link to the Ward Weekly. So thank you very much. I think those are great things to also encourage our students to look at. And I think we heard some good suggestions about open house. We've also heard about the challenges and uniquenesses from Kim about her experiences, and also just the assistance and the students who actually do the work oftentimes are also helping out with the collection, right? Because a lot of these collections are barely known by a lot of the museum staff. And in many cases, they have only very rough inventories or maybe no inventories at all. So students can also assist the repositories on the other end too. So it can be very reciprocal in helping the museums as well as the students and their research. And I think maybe another part of that, in addition to that, could be, have the students give a small lecture, as part of some of these grants or scholarships, to that local repository. That makes the connection between those local communities and their resources even more stronger. So hopefully some of the scholarship, funding folks can look for that or encourage their students, the students who are applying, and also the professors, to say, hey, you're presenting something at SAAs, but hey, why don't you do a small little presentation too for that local community too? That would be really helpful. So, yeah. So any other thoughts or suggestions on how to improve or enhance student, academic, and even, those of us who are professionals, to relooking at collections? I'll just open the floor for suggestions. And of course, we do have our note takers. So if you have thoughts about that, that'll be up for as long as that link is available. So if you have some thoughts after our meeting or discussion today and you want to jot some thoughts or ideas down, please do so there and share that out to the group that's here joining us. Feel free, but anyone else have some thoughts or ideas? Oh, don't be shy. I'm going to put somebody on the spot. Sean, my colleague. He has a resource that I think a lot of students might be interested in. So,
Hi. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sean Fawcett. I am the Emory Archaeological Lab Coordinator. We currently have a lot of volunteer opportunities for students to utilize. Students can come in and volunteer to do rehousing, analysis on small excavation collections. So we have more than enough opportunities for people to get lab experience. If anyone is interested in volunteering, or if you know someone that is looking for volunteer opportunities, or to just get more experience without having to take other classes or find other resources. So we definitely have a number of artifacts inside the lab that they can check out. Eventually we will be putting together our own PAC class collection. Just got to organize that. So drop us a line. I'm here at History Colorado. You can come in and visit the lab if you'd like. We can talk about what kind of opportunities we can present for you.
thank you very much, Sean, for shining the spotlight on our lab. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I got one more thing. For those that are interested in the exhibit side of museums, I also work in the exhibits department down here at History Colorado. So if you have students that are curious about how that process works, I can help provide information about that or volunteer positions with our exhibits team to kind of like really get your hands in the mix. I'll drop my email in the chat for everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, so we've had a number of great students who've come through History Colorado. We do have a number of internship programs available. Wanted to definitely mention, not only here working with our collections, but we have internship programs working in our preservation office, working with National Register nomination forms and that kind of thing. So again, a great opportunity all around here at History Colorado for any of the students to get some real life experience and helping, with either collections or preservation projects in general. So yes. Any other suggestions how we can encourage or enhance? We've got some great ideas. It is part of the game plan, to have and encourage students looking at these collections. If anyone is doing, I just wanted to mention a couple things. If you're doing any kind of analysis that involves destructive analysis, the state archaeologist needs to approve of that project. So just, it's a state collection. So you can email us to get that process approved. Also, if you're transporting artifacts out of state, you have a specialist that's going to be looking at those collections, and it's going out of state. The state archaeologist also needs to have that his or her approval to have that happen as well. So email us that, and we'll get of course, our current state archaeologist, Dr. Holly Norton, will sign that most usually. So unless there's like a question, like it's the only artifact of its type around, and destroying it or leaving it out of the country might cause a problem, generally speaking, it's a pretty straightforward process, but be sure to try to get those approvals as well. So, and if it's a small ancillary sample, so it's a small, like, radiocarbon sample, that's nothing, that's, an artifact itself, a larger diagnostic artifact, those do not necessarily need to have state archaeologist approval. So, and you can find more information about that on our state approved repositories program website and all the forms that you need. Great. Well, again, I want to thank all of our participants, Tammy, Jade, Janine, Kim, let's see, Ray, Mike. Thank you all for stepping up, Sean, impromptu, for all participating today in today's discussion. And we look forward to seeing you at our next confab, and really appreciate all the input today. And look for this to be on YouTube soon. So thanks so much.